Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you've been following the absolute tidal wave of conflicting VR headlines lately, well, you know the confusion. Some people are out there swearing Meta is completely abandoning VR, while others are absolutely convinced a brand new flagship headset is dropping any second now. Today, we're cutting right through that hype. We're going to reconstruct Meta's actual hardware roadmap from the ground up, using only hard evidence to show you exactly what is going on behind the scenes at Reality Labs.
Meta's next VR headset was supposed to be here this year. It probably isn't. Here's what we actually know. Actually, scratch the fan wish lists entirely. We're leaving those at the door. We are looking exclusively at what's been reported by reliable insiders, what executives have explicitly said on the record, and what the financial data proves. This is a strictly evidence-only breakdown of the future of the Quest platform.
So, here is our agenda for today's explainer. 1. The roadmap reality check. 2. The confirmed cancellations. 3. What is actually coming. 4. The Quest 3 reality. And 5. The final verdict. Let's map this journey all the way from corporate strategy straight down to your wallet.
Okay, let's dive straight into Section 1, the confirmed cancellations, the death of Quest 4.
Let's start by examining the scene of the crime on our timeline. Back in mid-2025, oVRview reported that Meta's original dual-track strategy for the Quest 4, two headsets internally codenamed Pismo Low and Pismo High, were completely shelved. We can officially tag this as a confirmed cancellation. Then early 2026 hits, and Reality Labs cuts roughly 10% of its staff. That is another confirmed fact. Meta actively reorganized their teams to, as they put it, unblock hardware development and become way more efficient.
And why did they pull the plug on those projects? Well, this staggering number explains it all. More than $6 billion. That was Meta's quarterly Reality Labs loss reported in early 2026. This is a confirmed financial reality. During their earnings calls, CEO Mark Zuckerberg and CFO Susan Li made it crystal clear that massive amounts of capital were being diverted toward AI infrastructure and wildly successful wearables like the Ray-Ban smart glasses. The era of blank check VR subsidies, that officially had to end.
Which brings us right to Section 2. What is actually coming, the surviving hardware?
So, just to be clear, those cancellations do not mean Meta is retreating from VR entirely. Not at all. They just hit the reset button. Pushing right back against the whole VR is dead narrative, Meta's CTO, Andrew Bosworth, explicitly confirmed at Davos that they are still aggressively developing new hardware. He basically laughed off the internal leaks and stated directly that they have two devices on the roadmap they are super excited about. So, that's a confirmed, on-the-record fact. New headsets are coming.
And Meta CFO Susan Li backed this up perfectly. While acknowledging they are reducing overarching investments in the metaverse software side, she explicitly confirmed that Meta is still absolutely building future headsets. So the existence of future hardware, totally confirmed. But the big question is, what exactly are these two surviving devices?
Well, the really crucial point here is that these two devices belong to completely different hardware tracks. It represents a massive split in Meta's design philosophy. Now, based on highly credible firmware leaks, we're looking at two tracks. We're going to tag these as speculative, but they are heavily corroborated. Track 1 is codenamed Project Griffin, and Track 2 is Project Puffin, which is sometimes also referred to as Phoenix or Loma.
This speculative breakdown brilliantly illustrates the difference between the two. Griffin is the true heavy-hitting gaming successor to the Quest 3, basically what we would traditionally call the Quest 4. It's an all-in-one standalone device with traditional controllers targeting a release no earlier than the second half of 2027 or maybe even 2028. Puffin, on the other hand, is this radical new ultralight mixed reality device aimed strictly at productivity and media consumption, and that could potentially arrive earlier in the first half of 2027.
Now, to really understand Puffin, you've got to understand the speculative concept of distributed compute. This is Meta's plan to shrink a headset down to just 110 grams by taking the heavy battery and the hot processor right out of the headset and moving them into a tethered puck that you just drop in your pocket. They can offer an experience that feels a lot more like wearing bulky sunglasses than a heavy VR helmet.
But what about Griffin? Well, looking at the speculative spec sheet, leaked internal memos paint a picture of a massive, no-compromise device. It's described literally as a large upgrade over the Quest 3. We are talking a next-generation Snapdragon XR2 Gen 3 chipset, upgrading to 4K micro OLED displays for those perfect true blacks, and, huge news, the return of eye and face tracking. That eye tracking is absolutely key because it unlocks dynamic foveated rendering, focusing all that processing power exactly where your eyes are looking. But remember, Meta is done burning billions to subsidize hardware, so when this beast finally drops, it is going to be a highly premium, more expensive headset.
Okay, let's bring this all back down to earth. Section 3. The Quest 3 reality, what it means for you today.
Let's translate these massive corporate roadmaps into a practical verdict for you, the standalone user. When we look at this timeline, the Quest 3 launched in late 2023. That means right now, in 2026, it is sitting firmly in its mid-cycle. If the absolute earliest window for the Griffin Quest 4 is late 2027 or 2028, well, early adopters and new buyers still have a very long, healthy runway ahead of them.
If you are personally experiencing upgrade paralysis right now, I want you to anchor yourself to this specific signal, the April 2026 price hike on the Quest 3 and 3S. This is a vital piece of analysis. Meta actually raising the price of existing, older hardware proves that their strategy of artificially lowering prices to chase market share is totally over. They just aren't willing to take those massive losses on every headset anymore.
So, based on our analysis, the practical takeaway is this. If you're holding your breath for a cheap, subsidized Quest 4 to magically hit the shelves next month, the evidence strongly suggests you'll be waiting until at least late 2027, and you'll be paying a lot more for it. Add in the fact that those third-party Horizon OS headsets from Asus and Lenovo are heavily delayed, and it becomes incredibly clear. 2026 is a remarkably safe time to buy a Quest 3 without any fear of instant obsolescence. You easily have 2+ years of strong software support ahead.
Let's wrap this up. Section 4, the final verdict. To summarize all the hard facts we've covered, the absolute bottom line is this. The Meta Quest 4 definitely exists on an internal roadmap, but 2026 is almost certainly not its year. The platform is definitely not dead. Rather, it's evolved into a longer-term, highly premium project. In the short term, Meta is pivoting its big money toward generative AI and scaling those super popular smart glasses, completely paving the way for the ultralight Puffin wearable next year.
So, now I'm turning it over to you. Looking at this evidence-based roadmap, are you content to just ride out the Quest 3 lifecycle? Or are you aggressively saving up for the Griffin and Puffin era? Seriously, what specific feature would actually make you pull the trigger on an upgrade? Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.